Hi, welcome back to episode 46 of Coach Barnabas. My name's Corey, and welcome. Just pleased that you have decided to join me today. On my most recent episode, my last episode that I recorded, I talked about overcoming insecurity, which I grew up loaded with insecurities, and I kind of went into some detail on that in my previous episode. This one I kind of want to unpack it a little bit further, and talk about and basically share some things that I mentioned towards the end of the episode previously, but it was already like at 20 minutes. I didn't want to go too long, so I decided I would make kind of a subsequent episode that would kind of ride the tail of that one, and kind of unpack that a little bit. So as I mentioned previously, I'm an introvert by nature. I'm not the kind of person who shows up at a party or something and like, ta-da, I'm here. And I know people like that. And that's fine. I'm more the kind of guy who, hey, Corey, well, when did you get here? It's like, well, I've actually been here like 2 hours. That's more my nature. I just kind of blend. And that's if I go at all, because I have been known to drive to something where I just feel socially awkward and just turn around and drive away without getting out of the car. That's happened. But for the most part, I'm just, I'm just not an attention seeker. Even doing this is awkward for me because the reason that it even exists is because I had to put it out there and ask people to come watch it, which is, kind of unnerving at times, because it's like, hey, I open myself up to people who think, what I'm saying is nonsense, or they disagree with it, and I don't want to get into debates or arguments, that kind of stuff. I just want to encourage people. So I try to present things that are not necessarily controversial or debatable, but just like, hey, that's your story, and I relate to it, and it encourages me. That's kind of where I come from, but who knows where this will go. There may be topics that we take on that are kind of controversial, or there are different angles that people can debate. Who knows? That could happen, but that's not really the nature or the purpose of this particular program. But anyway, to just unpack, once I gave my heart to the Lord was in 1983. I was age 18. I was just trying to figure out what's next. What does this even mean? What does a Christian life mean? And so, and that's fine. That's expected. If you come in thinking like you got it all figured out, you know what you're going to do. I don't know. I would question that. I certainly had no idea. I was at a pivot point in my life because I was in my senior year of high school. So I was kind of ending one chapter of my life and entering a whole new one. And now I've layered upon that this whole new spiritual life and journey that I was embarking on. So there was a whole lot of new going on at the time, while also kind of saying goodbye to something that had been familiar, and that was just a life in school with all my friends and all that kind of stuff. Sports. There was a routine to the life that I had been living, and now it was going to be very different. So there's a whole lot of unknowns. But one thing, that you carry no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. I live 3,000 miles from where I grew up. And as different as it may be, the climate and, the culture and all that kind of stuff, the one consistent that you bring with you is yourself. So, whether you're changing jobs, you're moving locations, whatever the case is, the one consistency that you bring with you everywhere you go is yourself. And that can be a good thing. You bring all your strengths, you bring all your memories, but it could also be a challenge because you also might be lugging along things with you that aren't necessarily very good. So as I was entering this whole Christian world, one of the things that I brought with me was, and this is going to sound a little bit nuts by itself, but I grew up thinking singing was the single most embarrassing thing a person could do publicly, aside from like running through the mall in your underwear or something, or through the center of town in your underwear. To me, it was just like that. It was that kind of, exposure, and I don't know. I grew up, going to birthday parties, and I wouldn't sing happy birthday. And Christmas carols, never learned Christmas carols because I just, being around people and singing. Now, by myself, walking to school or driving to school, something like that, that's different, sing along, whatever. But after being a Christian for about a year or so, a friend of mine had started a youth choir at our church. And she knew that I played in the band from fifth grade. I played the trombone growing up. So I could read music while playing the trombone. That, I'd never tried singing publicly. I didn't want to do it, but she asked me if I would join the youth choir, and I thought, okay, yeah, sure, I could do that. And so I did. I joined the youth choir. And then she got this wild idea that she wanted to do like a musical play kind of thing. And there was a solo in it. And she thought I'd be perfect in the role of this character who sang the solo. And now this is all unbeknownst to me. So finally, in front of everybody, she hadn't discussed this with me in advance. She said, okay, we're going to do this play. Corey's going to play this part and he's going to sing this song. And, were it not for the fact that, again, introvert, I'm just not one to make a scene. I would have kicked and screamed my way out of that if I could have. I mean, you couldn't have offered me anything that to me was more mortifying, frightening. I think the blood completely exited my body. I mean, it was a horrible moment in my life where I just froze and I didn't know what to do. And so, but I didn't want to make a scene. I didn't want it to become an issue with my friend who I respected and trusted. So I took the recording home of the song and listened to it. I really liked the song. It was a really powerful song to me. And so I went home and I practiced it and listened to it, practiced it, got to the point where I memorized it. And we ended up not doing the musical, but we did end up singing the song. And so I got up in front of the church. We had a pretty large church, about 1,000 people. So making his singing debut in front of about 1,000 people or so, I got up and sang this song. And once it was over, people came up to me and said, wow, I didn't know you could sing. And I literally would say to them, like, me either. It was a real moment of, I don't know. I don't want to say epiphany or anything like that, but it was just a moment where I just kind of self-discovery or something. I don't know, but God had involuntarily, I was the involuntary person in this transaction, but against my will, had introduced me to something that would become a huge part of my life over the next several decades. So, it got to the point to where there was something inside me that enjoyed it. There was something inside, and it wasn't about the attention, believe me, but there was something about the expression musically, and being able to communicate, a message to people musically. And so it gave me something. It gave me a platform that led to ministry. And I got to travel and tour professionally for a while. I went to college and ended up being pulled, I auditioned for and was accepted into a singing group, musical group there. And I've led worship. I've been part of numerous worship teams through the decades. And even in the church where I serve now, after about a year or so of just getting acclimated to the church and the people, I sang my first song and eventually joined the worship team. And then that even led to being the worship director at the church for a number of years. But all along, this is the thing that what led to me writing a blog for a few years was singing is great. Music ministry is awesome. I'm not a songwriter. So basically when I'm singing songs, I'm singing other people's inspiration. Something inspired them to write this song. Some experience of theirs was something they thought, okay, I want to put this to music, and here's this song. So I was singing somebody else's experience, and what I longed to do was be able to share, my vision of things, or my experiences, or what God is speaking to me to people. But I didn't necessarily want to do it musically, and I couldn't necessarily do it musically. So I started writing and doing a blog and things like that. But then it got to the end of the road as far as being the worship leader. Not that I didn't want to sing anymore. That's certainly not the case. But, on a week-to-week basis and all this, I just decided it was time for me to step down, which I did, I don't know, 2-3 years ago. And eventually, I was still, I wasn't stepping down so I could step into the next big thing. I really didn't know what it was going to be. But that's okay, because things don't have to overlap perfectly seamlessly. It's just like being ready for God to do whatever he wants to do in the next season. And so that ultimately led to being part of a teaching team at church. And now, over the past year, I started on January 22nd of 2024. So coming up on a year from now, just a year ago, started the Coach Barnabas podcast, which is, given me another avenue to do what I said, something I've always wanted to do, and that was just be able to share my experiences, my heart, what God is teaching me, what he's taught me through my mistakes, what he's taught me through difficult times, what he's taught me through, wonderful things, and testimonies of God's goodness. And sometimes it's just sustaining us through difficult times, through the storms, being ever present in storms of life, but also just being someone who just says, trust me, and you trust him, and then he takes you through things, just through life. And that's, what happened for me. And that's kind of led me to where I am now at this stage of my life. And so the whole thing is about, again, going back, if you watched the previous episode, and if you haven't, it's literally the previous episode 45. This is episode 46, where I entitled Overcoming Insecurity. Okay, so it's easy to find. But if you did listen to it or you haven't yet, I talk about just being loaded with insecurities and not being comfortable in front of people. I mentioned that I had vitiligo, rather pronounced vitiligo. It was very obvious. And to this day, I have just natural habit of sticking my hands in my pockets to kind of hide them. That just become absolutely natural to me. A natural position is my hands in my pockets. Because growing up, kids will ask you, were you burned? One guy in high school used to call me a leper. So, I had my share of awkward moments, whether it was intentional, to tease me or razz me, or unintentional, just to ask questions that would explain why I look differently than everybody else. But no matter the intention, it was awkward. I didn't want to be the center of attention. So God, in his infinite wisdom, and perhaps a tinge of sense of humor, ended up, filling my tool bag with tools that put me in front of people. And when you're singing, I'd have to hold a mic, and there's my spotted hands for all to see. I did television at times, singing on television, different things. And now you've got a television audience watching you. And so all that to say is that, even in my discomfort or going against the grain of my nature, what I was doing was I would close my eyes and just sing to God. And it was a very personal expression shared publicly. So it was kind of an odd dichotomy in that way. But at the same time, it's like, God gave me a measure of ability to do this. And he kept providing increase and opportunity, which I followed. And, it just kind of took me through decades of ministry and being able to connect with people in a way that was very meaningful to them. It was very meaningful to me. Sometimes we're listening to the same song, or I'm singing the song and somebody else is listening to it, and they could relate to it and apply it to their own lives differently than even I was. Although it was the same song communicating, I was attaching it to the personal experiences of my life. They were attaching it to the personal experiences of their lives. And that's just a God thing, that he could take two different people who don't know each other, come from all kinds of different backgrounds and experiences, and use a singular moment, a singular place and time where you're at the same place at the same time, and do two different things through two different people simultaneously, through one vehicle, which may have been a song or a series of songs. So, it just opened my eyes to so many things and gave me some great experiences, some great testimonies, and it's been an amazing journey. But if you'd asked me, or if you told me, okay, Corey, you've now accepted Jesus into your heart, that's awesome. Great decision. Now, what's going to happen is you're going to end up singing in front of, at times, tens of thousands of people. You're going to sing on television. You're going to travel the country. You're going to sing in other countries. You can do this. I would have said, you know what? That's not what I signed up for. Count me out. It would have been very easy to do that. My point in all of this is to say that, if you are still looking for what does God have for you, and you want to get involved, you want to get involved in ministry, you want to explore the depths of your relationship with him, is just say, God, use me however you want to use me. Show me, even if you have to drag me kicking and screaming into something, show me something that you want me to do, and I'll say yes. Okay, you have to be willing to say yes no matter what the assignment. There were times where I was asked to sing in a nursing home where, the people are there pretty much probably against their will. And it was kind of a heartbreaking experience at times. People who are essentially trapped in their own bodies, they're sad. And times where I would say yes solely because it was the last place I wanted to go. And then walking out of there with my heart just full after being able to talk with people after we got done singing or whatever, and just listen to their stories or see them smile or to see their tears, whatever it was, just walking out of there feeling like, man, thank you, Lord, for giving me this hour or whatever it was to just connect with people and to speak to them and to encourage them and bless them in some way. So, just ask God to use your innate qualities, which for me was encouraging people, and then also to combine them with little ingredients that God placed in you when he created you. If you read Psalm 139, you'll know what I'm talking about, that he built within you certain things that he equipped you personally to be able to do that maybe go against the grain of your nature, your personality, but when you close your eyes and say, God, this is you and me, and I just want this to be a personal expression to you. I want to do unto the least of these and ultimately do it for you. Now, by the least of these, I certainly is not to cast aspersions on whoever you're touching in ministry, but to say, it's not about me, it's about you, God, and it's about the people you want to reach, and you want to use me. So let me get out of the way. Let my ego get out of the way. And I just want to follow you. And believe me, when you do that, not everybody's going to understand. To this day, I still have people who like to criticize, things I say when, I don't know, there's always going to be kind of trolls or voices of negativity. And that's where you have to just again, shut your eyes and say, God, you put this on my heart. And no matter what other people say, think, do, whatever, I'm going to follow you. I'm going to trust you and stand firm on that. Again, going away from worrying about what other people think and being a man pleaser, a people pleaser, and saying, I just want to be a God pleaser, and I want to obey you and follow what you have for me to do. And when you do that, he opens doors. He will sometimes put you in situations that are uncomfortable, but in that discomfort, knowing he's by your side, you sense it, and something inside of you will awaken. Something inside of you will come alive. And I have firsthand experience it, and it's happened numerous times throughout my life. Even recently, even at my ripe old age, getting into teaching at church, something I'd never done before. I mean, I taught a Sunday school of like third graders, back when I was in college. Very different when you're teaching adults. You're doing a discipleship class. So, it's sometimes God will take you into areas where you have no personal experience, but he just says, I will open your mouth, I'll fill it. Okay. And that's what he did. That's what he's done for me time and time again. He'll do it for you. So I just encourage you to just ask God, Lord, what do you have for me? And maybe it's starting a page on Facebook of people who you can relate to, and your story will help connect with them. Maybe it's just using social media. Again, I'm thinking introverted me. Okay, ways you can just reach out to people without having to go door to door knocking on people's door. Like you're selling vacuum cleaners or encyclopedias. Which, if you're old enough, you'll understand any of that. If you're under the age of 30, you're like, what? Anyway. But you can use things without even leaving your home that can have a profound impact on somebody else's life by just reaching out to somebody, even through social media, and say, you know what, God put you on my heart. I just want you to know I'm praying for you. And I've done that with people who aren't even Christians, and reach out to people I went to high school with and say, hey, so-and-so, I just want you to know that today I'm dedicating to praying for you. If you have anything that you'd like me to pray for, please let me know. But otherwise, even if I don't hear back from you in any way, shape, or form, I want you to know I'm lifting your name before the Lord today. You can do that and have an impact on somebody's life. And I'll tell you, every single time I did that, I got some sort of response from somebody. And it was always positive. It wasn't like, take your stuff and maybe I just chose wisely, or maybe it was just the Lord saying, I put this person's name on your heart. I want you to pray for them. And 100% of the time, even if they weren't Christians, I got appreciation in return. But I was also prepared to get pushback, and I was okay with that because, again, pleasing God was fundamental, first and most important in popularity. And if you can allow yourself to explore that possibility that, what I'm going to do may not be popular, but I'm going to obey. I'm going to trust God. And I'm going to do this. It's harmless. And even if somebody pushes back, I'm not going to let that dissuade me. I'm going to press in, and I'm going to pray for that person today. Anyway, these are just some things I'm just spitballing here, just throwing out there. God may already have an idea that he's planted in your heart, and it just needs you to say, yes, I'm going to do that. I'm not going to put it off any longer. I'm going to make it happen. And just do it. Take one step at a time, each day at a time. And maybe it's something you could start today. Maybe it's going to take 6 months of planning. I don't know. But do it. Start today. Start now. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. The second best time is today, right? That old saying. Let today be your day. So that's all I have to say for now. As always, be encouraged. Be an encourager. Thanks so much for tuning in again. If you would do the YouTube thing, like, subscribe, I'd appreciate it. Comment, share it with people. I'd appreciate it. And it helps the channel, and it helps us reach people with encouraging messages. So thank you so much again for joining me. Look forward to talking to you again very soon. Take care. Bye now.
Thank you for joining the Coach Barnabas podcast. We'd greatly appreciate your support by liking and subscribing to the podcast and setting up notifications so we can let you know when new episodes are available. We'd love to hear from you, so please leave a comment. Make a difference today.